Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Brian Smith, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, Smart Lawyers Love Dumb Nurses. This is episode number 2. There's a very famous line in a movie from 1966 where the warden says, "What we have here is a failure to communicate." It's from the movie Cool Hand Luke, and it's one of my favorite lines from that movie. If you haven't seen the movie, you may want to take some time to watch it. But in our work life, more than anything else, we communicate with each other. More than anything we do as human beings, we send messages. We do it verbally and non-verbally. Now, I want to focus today on how we communicate on our jobs. As you can tell from the title of this podcast, it is aimed specifically at nurses and nursing students. However, we all communicate in our jobs, whatever it might be. And there might be many healthcare workers, such as social workers, dietary, nursing assistants, who could benefit from what we talk about on this podcast. And let's cut to the chase. We do not do a very good job communicating in this country. Just think for a moment how many times you have had miscommunication in your daily dealings with people, whether it's talking to your mechanic and getting your car fixed properly, or even when we go through McDonald's, we can't even get our order right. We really don't do a very good job communicating on our jobs. Now, excellent communication is vital for nurses. It is not just necessary, it is vital to give clear, accurate communication. But that's true for whatever the job might be. Communication is not about fun and games, because in the nursing profession, it could be life or death in certain circumstances. It is not enough to hear what the client is saying. We must listen to what the client is saying. I am a firm believer that we need to articulate clearly with our clients, whether it is on our job as nurses, nursing students, with our instructors, or whatever your job role might be. We must communicate, articulate, and show professionalism. We need to avoid inappropriate words when speaking to our clients and to our colleagues and to families and to people that we are associated with on our jobs. Now, I know when I educate my students, I teach them to use words that do not give a negative visual interpretation or misinterpretation. For example, when I teach nursing students, I prefer they say, "I have your injection," as opposed to "I have your shot." Now, I have heard the phrase ever since I graduated from nursing school in 1986 that nurses eat their young. What does that mean? Well, I prefer to say it's nurses behaving badly. The meaning of that is that nurses in the field treat new grads and inexperienced nurses poorly. I've seen it over and over and over. It's probably one of the reasons why we have a major nursing shortage in this country. But what am I really talking about? Well, new nurses, young nurses, student nurses, those inexperienced on the job, The mature and the veteran nurses often demean them, are impatient with them, talk rudely to them, criticize them, and are generally a little tough on them. Looking back, had I known the poor treatment I would receive from nurses and doctors early in my nursing career, I am convinced I would have chosen a different profession. As I ponder the question, why do nurses eat their young, I cannot give a definitive answer. I do know the question has plagued nursing for decades, and the bottom line is it needs to stop. New nurses are often told ahead of their first job to be wary of mean-spirited nurses. Watch your back is a common warning. All of us have watched television shows or movie scenes depicting the charge nurse scowling at new grads, barking orders, terrifying patients, and nurses alike. Hollywood's version is a fantasy, of course, but some nurse stereotypes are based on reality and the reports of mean nurses. Again, it's nurses behaving badly. While Hollywood has toned down this depiction of nurses in recent years, the problem of nurses eating their young is still very relevant today. So what can be done to properly welcome our graduating nurses and our young nurses into this beautiful profession? And what are the viable options to keep new grads on their job? Studies have shown that 60% of new grads quit their first job due to bad behavior from coworkers within the first year. Now think about all the money that is used to train one employee. Some research indicates that it's as high as $20,000. Now, first of all, nurse managers must be aware that new nurses have anxiety, to say the least, and even terror at the thought of starting their first job. Those who are assigned to orient new nurses are often randomly chosen for the role. There is often the distinct possibility the new nurse is shadowing a nurse who does not want that responsibility of teaching them. Nurse managers or charge nurses must be cognizant of which nurses are best suited to orient new nurses. The best nurses know how to teach. They prefer constructive feedback to negativity, and they have enough common sense and tact not to openly criticize the young nurse or the student nurse in front of patients or co-workers. Now, I have never liked the term nurse manager. Nurses need leaders, not managers. Nursing needs to keep managers on the baseball field. The worst nurse managers I have had, and I've had my fair share, were more concerned with their bottom line than they were leading the team. Do as I say, not as I do. They may have managed the books and the budget quite nicely, but they couldn't lead or inspire greatness. In truth, a manager is best suited for controlling events, objects, strategy, and details, not for leading people. The best leaders know how to communicate properly. They know how to listen first and not just hear. Hearing and listening are two different things. Talking and communicating are two different things. The great lead by example. The best nurse leaders I worked with were not just expert at nursing skills. They listened intently and spoke patiently. They also did not allow power to go to their head. Now, it's been written and said, faith moves mountains. Our mountains are any problem, test, issue, crisis that we have. Our mountains dare us. They defy us. They ultimately define us. Whether we win or lose, succeed or fail, overcome or fall short, the mountain we climb defines who we are. Now, Jesus himself said that if you have faith, you can move mountains. Let me state that again. Faith can move mountains. What is faith? Well, some say faith is believing what you can't see. But if you have a vision for your future, you will see it. Communication. That's the theme for today. I have learned to live my life by 3 common rules. Number 1, have common sense. Number 2, have common courtesy. Number 3, have common decency. Now, we've all heard the expression, common sense is not so common. Hate seems to be the underlying theme of the day. I'm sure everyone listening has probably experienced road rage. We hear about dirty politics, fake news. The love of money may be the root of all evil, but hate is sprouting up all around us. And I always tell my students, if you're not a good person, you will not be a good nurse. No matter how well you did in nursing school, no matter how book smart you are, no matter how good you look in that nursing uniform, there is no room in nursing for bullying. Others may describe it as horizontal violence. I have come to refer to it as the culture of criticism. Whatever the description, there is no purpose or need for it in nursing or anywhere else for that matter. Again, we're talking about how we communicate to each other on our jobs and in real life when we're not working. I have also experienced it personally, this culture of criticism, this bullying on more than a few instances, especially in my young nursing career. I cannot accurately explain why some nurses treat coworkers with impatience or discourtesy, but nursing incivility and rudeness occurs just too often. I do want to talk about bullying for just a few more moments, and if it is occurring on your job, it needs to be reported and it needs to be addressed. There are many contributing factors for nurse bullying, incivility, or rudeness. Let's face it, caring for sick people is stressful, especially if compounded by a client who is demanding. Add that to the equation factors such as poorly trained staff, a manager's unreasonable expectations, or families that are demanding a nurse's time, and you can see the problem. Nurses who work in stressful situations often do not know how to handle stress as well as they should. That is one reason for this podcast and this episode today. Some hospitals and nursing facilities have come to realize the importance of proper behavior among staff and holding employees to a higher standard. Information is often discussed with new employees when they start orientation regarding employee values. Now, these standards should include greeting everyone with a smile, making eye contact, and asking if the client needs help. What has gotten lost in all this customer service is that coworkers are also customers. Every customer must be treated with the utmost respect. Now, when I was in nursing school back in 1985 is when I started, I really didn't feel like I was treated with respect. I was beneath my instructors. I was always concerned because I never saw them smile. I used to call some the walking dead. I never saw them blink. But those days of education and talking to nursing students is in the past. It's gone. We shouldn't have to put up with that. And I, as an instructor, have learned not to do that. In my 37 years in nursing, I have seen it all. I know that nurses don't consciously become bad nurses. Why do they change? Well, there are many factors. You could say that nurses develop into bad nurses because they don't develop, period. Coping and communication are important in nursing skills. Maybe nursing has become too challenging or not challenging enough. I don't know. There is nothing worse than working just to pick up a paycheck. That philosophy may be a standard with some professions, but it certainly doesn't fly in nursing. It is the skills that pay the bills. That's what I tell my students every week. But a stressful or unstable home and family also do not help. So it's very important to not let your personal life interfere with your work. Talk to your instructor about it. You could say something like, I am having some issues at home, but I'm dealing with it. I will continue to do my best. A good instructor will want to talk to you about that. Here's what you must remember. Nursing is not just a job. It is a way of life. When you ask most people what they do for a living, they say, I work in a factory, I drive a truck, or I'm in sales. Invariably, when you ask someone in the nursing profession, the medical profession, healthcare, they will not reply that they work in a hospital or medical facility. They will say, I am a nurse. I am a social worker. Their profession becomes a part of who they are. When I ask patients to describe the best nurses that cared for them, patients consistently replied with such comments as, my nurse was so kind. She always had a smile on her face. He really seemed genuine. I could tell he wanted to take care of me. One comment in particular resonated with me. She looked directly in my eyes when talking to me. She listened to my concerns. Another patient told me she was very impressed with her doctor because he got a chair, he sat down beside my bed, he took my hand, and he didn't seem in a hurry. He even wrote down my comments. Now those comparisons are striking, aren't they? A new week is really a new opportunity for greatness. Whenever I am challenged or in a stressful situation, I find that I go back to studying the life of Abraham Lincoln. And we all know the story. Lincoln was known as a rail splitter. He was a man who chopped at that wood, sharp axe, determination. It builds muscle, and it also builds character. So focus to keep your eye on that goal, on that exact spot where you're going to split that particular piece of wood. I remember as a young man working on our church building, 20 years old. A few times when I was hammering nails into that drywall, I would miss the nail and I would hit the drywall, even my fingers a couple times. An experienced contractor working with us to build that church gave me some sound advice. He said, if you keep your eye completely on that nail, you won't miss it. And he was right. Now back to good old Abe Lincoln. He did his job every day, despite some very trying times. His son Willie was very sick. He kept chopping at that wood. Every day he would keep chopping at that wood, splitting those rails, working. I think that's one of the keys when you are going through a trial. Keep swinging that axe. Focus on the rail. Keep your eye exactly where you want to make the next strike. Now, we all have the mental strength to go in the direction our heart tells us. I tell my students, follow your bliss, not the money. Also, be careful of all the drama. Drama is a disease. So if you have drama, please get well soon. If you think that people will be sweet and kind to you because you are so sweet and kind to them, well, you're fooling yourself. But one of the saddest things I have noticed about young nurses is when they change from the sweet, soft-spoken new grad, and I see them years later, they are now less sympathetic and more tough-thinking veteran. I am asking my students, please don't morph into some of your hardened colleagues. Stay true to who you are and what drew you to nursing in the first place. Now, I am not saying that because you are kind, you are weak. That's not what I'm saying at all. You can be both. Kindness makes you beautiful. Now, we're talking about communication here in podcast number 2. Your desire for success must be greater than your fear of failure. Your communication must be impeccable. If you don't know what that word means, look it up. Communication is not only important for nurses, it is also important for anyone who has a job. Communication begins with you, and if you work with folks who maybe have a deficiency in that, sometimes your experience and your example will help change the way. One thing I have noticed for me is my life began to change when I started having a more positive inner dialogue. In other words, what I would say to myself and in my head. I remember distinctly some years ago, my wife would say to me, you need to quit complaining. Let's do something. Let's try something. Let's quit complaining for 1 week and see what miracles can happen. Remember, when you complain, half the people you complain to do not care. The other half are glad you're having a bad day. Communication is something that you do every day of your life on your job, and also is important in your daily activities, paying bills, going to the grocery store, whatever it might be. But again, I challenge you to think positive. And let's see what miracles can happen. That's going to be our conclusion for today's episode on communication. I want to thank you very much for joining me on this podcast. Please subscribe and join on Spotify. This is the second episode of many more to come, and I hope to have you join in again. Please direct your communication to me at brianlyon1957@gmail.com. That's all lowercase, brianlyon1957@gmail.com. I want to hear what you have to say so we can improve. In closing, remember, hard work beats talent. And focus is better than intelligence. Until next time, this is Dr. Brian Smith saying, communication is the key.